Hi everyone and welcome back. Since I am here to give you some tips and tricks as a beginner with watercolors, I thought it would be cool to paint a galaxy with 3 different kinds of paper. So I'll be using the cheapest paper that I have. I think it's like 2 or 3 euros for like, how much is it? 20 papers, so it's very cheap. Then a bit more expensive paper, which is this Canson paper. Still not very expensive, but it's good as a beginner. And the fancy watercolor paper, so the arches paper. So yeah, I think it's important that you can see the differences, and I feel like you don't necessarily need this expensive paper to start painting, but I do want to show to you what difference it makes. So I have already cut out 3 small pieces of paper. So this is the very cheap paper. I don't know if you can really see the structure here. I don't know if my camera wants me to show you that. This is kind of what it looks like. Then we have the Canson paper right here. Looks like this. I can recognize it because it has this ripped edge here, so that's nice. And then we have this arches paper right here. So I can put the 3 next to each other and add some light. Let's see if this will work. So I'm gonna tell my camera to be sharp on the papers basically. And let's see if we can really show that there's like different grains on the paper. I hope that is a bit well visible here. The Canson paper has the least structure out of the 3, and on the back they're all smooth. I don't know if you can see it very well, but I hope the camera picks it up well. Alright, so this is the 3 types of paper that we'll be working with, and we're gonna tape it onto some glass. So let me just grab that real quick. Alright, so I thought it could be interesting to put the cheapest paper next to the medium paper, let's say, because for me it's important that you can see that there's a difference between the 2 papers, but also that I expect this one to do quite well. So actually some time ago I also did an experiment with this. I will need to look back, but I made 3 galaxies as well then, and this is what they look like. And one of those papers was from Canson, and this one looks kind of the same. And I know I used a cheap paper as well, so that could be this one. But I'm not entirely sure, but there was a clear difference that could be observed during my painting process, and now I want to do the same kind of in one video. I can share the link to my Instagram where you can find it as well. Alright, so let's start preparing. So what do we need to do? We need to tape this paper. I always use this tape. It's from the Action. And I've learned from Skillshare from Keto. She shows in her tutorials how to apply the tape the best. And why do we apply this tape? Because usually when you start wetting the paper, it will start to bulge, especially cheap paper. Yeah, it just doesn't handle all that water, let's say. So this will keep it in place. It will not prevent the bulging, but at least it will make it a bit more manageable, let's say. So what she explains in her tutorials is that she presses along the tape like that, but also along the edges of the paper. So I also always try to do that to make sure that the tape is really adhering well to the paper. So while I'm editing this video, I see that I already made the paper bulge while taping the paper. So please pay attention while taping your paper that you don't already make it bulge. So I am using regular painter's tape, Another option is using gummed tape with Arabic gum, and the advantages of that are that you can actually stretch your paper. So where normally your paper will start to bulge when it is wet, by stretching your paper you make it wet, then you apply it, for instance, to this glass board and you tape it with the gummed tape. Because you tape it with this tape, it will you can kind of re-wet it, let's say. So if you if you try to tape wet paper, the tape will not stick to the paper because it's wet, and the gum tape will especially stick to that paper. So that's why you would use the gum tape. And because the paper dries while it's like maximally stretched, it will be stretched on your board as well, and it will not bulge when you wet it. Why am I not doing that right now? Because I am still figuring out what's the best way to stretch your paper. So if anyone has any tips for me, I would like to know that. Maybe I will make a video sometime on doing different experiments on stretching your paper. It's just that it takes so long before you see the result, and I can be a little bit impatient. So that's why I haven't done more about that yet. Right, and then we have our final one here. So I'm okay with using it like this. I also choose this size on purpose because the larger your paper gets, the more chances there are that it will bulge. So that's why I'm using this smaller size, because it's just easier for me. Alright, so I think our paper is sitting well right now, and our tape as well. So let's see. Okay, so we can immediately make this a kind of galaxy tutorial as well. So what do we need when we want to paint a galaxy? Well, we of course have our papers. I think it's good if I label them as well. So here we have our action paper, so cheap. Then we have Canson medium, and we have arches expensive. All right, so now we can't forget what is what. So what do we need? We need colors, right? So in another video I have explained why swatches are important to me. And to make this experiment reproducible, we are going to use the same colors on all three galaxies. So as I explained before, it's important that you pick a color that has little lifting, because what we're going to do is we're going to wet the paper, then apply our first layer of color, then let that dry, and then we're gonna wet it again to apply the night, as I like to call it. So for instance, these two colors could be nice to use because they show little lifting. So I'm gonna put them here. So I usually also really like to use phthalo blue because you can see how little lifting it has, especially compared to the Prussian blue right here. Can you see that difference? It's a very big difference, right? So we are gonna put the phthalo blue to the side. I also really like to use turquoise blue because it shows little lifting. Phthalo green is also one of my favorite colors, and I mean, look at that difference. I think I will include a video sometime where I will do a galaxy the right way, so using the right colors, and make a galaxy with like the wrong colors to show you the difference. Lots of phthalo blue. I also like the permanent green, as you can see, little lifting. Permanent yellow green, also very little lifting. I think we could go for a bit blue-green, and I think those were most of my blue-green colors. Yeah. Alright, so I will put these purple ones to the side as well. I will definitely be using phthalo blue, maybe phthalo green as well. Turquoise blue we could also include, and maybe we should just leave it at these three colors, alright? So we can see them here. Let me see. So I have my palette here, and what's important is that we activate our colors before we start painting. So why? Because otherwise the colors are not that strong. So what I will do first is activate the colors. So I have my phthalo blue, then I have my turquoise blue, and then I have my phthalo green. So they are, this is one, so I'm gonna just add some water to it. This is my turquoise blue. And my phthalo green is here. Voila. So these can activate now, so we're just gonna leave those. Then it's very important that we start to prep. So what else do we need? We have water, water, so that we can clean our brushes in between. I always like having my colors inside so that I know what I'm planning on doing. What I'll be using is a big brush to wet the paper, and I think it's important that we start working with start wetting the paper right now, because I always try to pay good attention to this process. Let me see. So you can really actually put quite some water on there and then spread it out. Is it a good idea that I try to do 3 at a time? We'll find out. So that's why it's really important to make sure that the paper is very wet, so that I won't be making things too difficult for myself. So what I usually do is apply quite some water the first time and then let that sit for a bit so that it can really work itself into the paper. I am doing the arches paper as last on purpose, because this paper is I know that it will stay wet for a longer time, and I don't know if that's because of the it's cotton paper and not cellulose, or that it's just, yeah, I don't know. I think it's because it's cotton and not cellulose, but I know this paper will stay wet the longest, so that's why I am doing it like this. So I can already see something happening here, so I'm gonna grab a phone to film this. Alright, so I'm gonna try to film this with my other phone, and hopefully this is visible. But you can already see that some of the paper is starting to bulge. So I am bringing out my my extra light, but you can see the Canson paper is already bulging. There's really like a pool of water here in the middle, and the Canson, the arches paper is still doing fine. The action paper is already looks like it's drying already. So let's add some more water. And now also you can really see that it's bulging a lot. The action paper is really not fun to work with. Alright, and here you can see that the arches paper is still quite okay. It's still quite flat. Also, I really want to point out that the arches paper smells a bit weird. So I am making a bit of a close-up now with my phone, so that you can see the differences between the three papers right now. I do think it's funny that the action paper is bulging more like this, and the Canson paper is bulging here. But yeah, I don't know why that is. Does it really matter? Maybe not. And the artist paper is still doing fine. So that's nice. I always try to avoid the bulging. So as I said, if you want to prevent this, then one solution would be to stretch your paper. But since I'm still working on that, so yeah, we're just not gonna do that. Alright, so you can still see that the artist paper is doing quite nicely. Alright, so I think we can start painting in a bit. So what do we want to do is we're just gonna put some color on there. We're just gonna add color to it and see how it goes. And as I said, I'm going to do the artist paper last because I know it will stay wet the longest, and the action paper is probably gonna dry up the quickest. So yeah. So I'm gonna pick up some phthalo blue first. Okay, and then I'm just gonna, add some. Okay, how about we try to do the same with every paper. So I'm just gonna start with blue on top. Alright, so I added a third shot now, third point of view. So I think it's nice if we let's start with the phthalo green on the bottom. Oh, there was already something interesting there. Like you can see that the paper starts to differ in color here, and it's already drying out here on the side. And if I'm correct, we'll be able to really see that in a bit. So as you can see, usually I really go for shapes and stuff, but that's not what I'm doing right now. Okay, so what can we see now is that the action paper and the Canson paper, they're bulging. And you can see that at the artist paper also right now 2 puddles have formed. Maybe that's because I added a bit of water there. I also didn't stretch the paper, as I said, so it can totally affect that. And we can see that here there's some nice flowing happening. Here you can also see that there's some flowing happening. I like seeing that. And as I said, here it's already starting to dry. So it would be nice if we could have some mixing of the colors, right? So I'm gonna bring the green up a bit. I'm gonna add some more water to my pan because it's a bit drying. Okay, so just to show you, I'm gonna drag this a bit. And then let's see how well it diffuses. So I do like usually to mingle my colors a bit, so I'm just gonna do the same everywhere, right? Alright, and then we're gonna do some turquoise blue in the middle. And then after that we'll just start mixing it a bit so that it looks nice and stuff. You can see here that there's clearly, like the paint is going with the warping of the paper. It doesn't look nice, right? And you can see here, I think the Canson paper is also starting to dry a bit, while the arches paper, it's still gonna be wet. This is still completely moist. I will see, I will grab my phone and see if I can show you that it's still wet. I don't know, but trust me, it is. And then you can see here the Canson paper, it's really bulgy. And here the action paper, which is really not looking so nice, I would say. All right. All right. So I want to add some more blue. So I'm gonna add some more to the top. And I kind of want to make them start touching there. And that we will drag out here. Can you see that here it's starting to dry? Because here you can see that it's diffusing and here it's barely diffusing. I'm just dragging some of that water that pulled up here so that I can spread it out a little bit. And then we're also going to bring the blue down there a bit. You can see how beautifully the arches paper is diffusing, right? All right, now I'm gonna go back to my green, add some water to that. Maybe we can take some of the turquoise again and start blending this out a little bit, just to see if we can get some nice effects there. You can see that there's some effects happening here. That's also because my brush is now a bit wetter than the paper probably, except for this part. So then it can create some interesting effects. You can see that here on top it's starting to dry a bit. And it's also really interesting that here you can see that there's a bit of, yeah, something interesting. Let me see if I can give a bit of a close-up. I was doing the turquoise. All right, so now we're gonna try to mingle this a bit as well. Okay, now I'm going back with the green. You can see that here it's already completely drying out, all right? But we're still gonna try to make something out of it, all right? Here it's almost completely dried out. You can see that here there's a sharp line. I hope it's also well visible on camera. Well, normally this would really nicely spread out, yeah? So if I do this here, you can see that it's immediately starting to spread out, right? I hope you can see that. So I will add a bit of water to my brush, yeah? And I'm just gonna re-wet the paper a little bit. Because here it's still wet, see? So I'm trying to kind of mingle the already dried parts with the parts that are still wet to still create some thing. And here we're still doing fine. I added a bit too much green, I think. But you can see that this paper is still nicely wet all over. And that's one thing that I noticed since I started working with this arches paper, is that I have so much more time to work on the first layer of my galaxy, also the second one. But usually I had to work really fast because as you could see, the paper already started to dry, and you're just trying to, you know, make these colors blend and stuff and, you know, create a nice effect. Well, I think you can already see the differences between all of these papers, because here we get such a nice blending effect, while here it looks like the colors are diffusing in a different way, and here it's just becoming a mess, you know. But I think for the first layer that we are set here. All right. Maybe I can also do it a bit from the top. But I think you can really see the differences, right? Alright, so what we're gonna do now is leave this to dry, and I'm not sure if I... Alright, so all the paper has dried, and let's look at what it looks like now. So there's quite a difference between the three papers. I think we can all agree that here the arches paper, it just looks the cleanest out of all of them. I will bring it up to this camera a bit. You can see that it's very well blended and it's just very even. However, when we look at the other two papers, it doesn't look so good, even though I tried my best to do the same for the both of them. You can see how, you know, it's very grainy here. You can see here the spot from when it already started drying out. Here it's just, yeah, the pigment started acting a bit weird here, huh? I mean, it can create really nice effects, but yeah, it's all a bit messy. So I went into this thinking like, okay, like I think I'm able to recommend you like the medium paper, but now that I'm looking at the results so far, I think the best message I can give you right now is when you are starting to paint with watercolors and things don't turn out as in the tutorial, it may have to do because you're using different paper, not that you're doing anything wrong. And it's very good if you try to accept that, especially if you don't want to buy the more expensive paper yet. And if it's starting to really bother you, then do make that step to buy this paper, because you can see the difference here. And this is something that I would have liked to see when I was starting. So that's why I am showing this to you right now. So what is our next step? Our next step is to add the night, as I like to call it. So I should put a link here to a tutorial where someone explains how to best paint a watercolor galaxy. And when I saw her tutorial, she explained this process of first applying the first layer, letting it completely dry, and then applying that second layer by rewetting the paper. So that creates the best effect for the galaxy. So that's what we're also going to do. You will be using this color Indigo, one of my favorite colors. It's just a dark blue. And we'll be using quite a bit of it, I think. Especially because, because we're painting with 3 galaxies at the same time. So I need to pay good attention to that. So this is my dish that I always use for indigo, especially when I use different consistencies of paint. So normally I would just use the pen. So I would paint from the pen, as you can see here. But now, because I have to do a bit more, I am just gonna use some of this. So this is also watercolor, but in a tube, and it's already liquid, as you can see. And it will just increase the intensity. And I will also be adding some water to the dish itself, like this, so that we can see, like, okay. So it's important in general when you're painting with watercolors that you have the right consistency and that you are consistent with your consistency. And that's something that I am still learning. But I try to pay attention to how the water, or like how right now it kind of flows. And I think I saw someone somewhere making comparisons to like tea and coffee and like that, milk, I think even. So I really like that. So I should also learn more about that, because I think it would be really valuable for me to pick up. But I think right now we're at a good consistency. And the thicker the consistency, the better coverage your watercolor will give. So I'm just gonna put my brush to the side. Gonna put this to the side as well for now. And what we're gonna do now is to wet the paper. So this is always a very delicate process. So I'll be using my brick brush again. Why is this a delicate process? Because there is a chance that your paper or your watercolors will lift from the paper. And so far, in my experience, the Arches paper is the best to work with. So I will start wetting with the Arches paper, because I feel like if I leave that one for a bit, it will still be okay. And I think these two papers will be more of a problem for me. So let's start with the Arches paper. Paul Clark also has some very nice tutorials. He also has a tutorial on how to paint the Northern Lights. And he also really explains well how to re-wet your paper, for instance. So I would recommend watching that one. Okay, so we're wetting our brush carefully, and we're just gonna go side by side. And of course there might be some color coming off, and that is okay, we will accept that. We just hope that there won't be any lines when we are re-wetting the paper. Alright? So usually I go, I think, at least twice over it with quite a wet brush, and then just leave it for a bit. Alright, I think, yeah, what should I do? I'm just gonna do the same as I did, and that is working from left to right. So you can see that now I applied water and most of it already disappeared, which is really interesting if you ask me. So it's soaking up the water really fast, while the Arches paper is really more taking its time. And the same now for the Arches paper. Also, usually when paper started to bulge, oh, see, the paint is coming off right here. Usually when it started to bulge in the first step, then it will start bulging in the same place. It yeah, kind of makes sense, right? But I just wanted to point that out. So you can see here in the middle that really the color is coming off. And like, yeah, I was really rooting for you, the Canson paper. It's a bit of a bummer. Okay, so we're gonna leave that. I do think I'm gonna apply already a third layer to the Arches paper, because I think it can handle. And I want just to make sure that it's really wetted through, because once it is wetted through, then I can just leave it a bit. Okay, I'm going back to the cheapest paper and I'm just gonna use this one. But you can see that not a lot of colors are coming off. There's very little color coming off the paper, and that's what we want. Okay, so what do we want to pay attention to right now is that the paper is wet all over. So especially here with the arches paper, I hope you can see that like, okay, it's pooling a bit right now here in the corners, but that's okay for me. But overall, it looks like it is kind of wet everywhere. And I also know that this paper, I feel like it absorbs the colors pretty well. So if I want, I can always re-wet a bit. So I'm just gonna leave this as is for now. Then we have the Canson and the cheapest paper here. You can see that they're bulging. I can see that some weird patterns are showing here. And at some places they're already going to dry. So I actually learned some tricks from Gitu through, what's it called? Skillshare. So let's start. I'm just gonna hold it. Okay, you can see that the density has changed already a bit in the dish here. So I'm gonna add some more water to it. Alright, and what I always start doing is adding water to the corners of the paper, because then I can see how dark the paint is and how it will flow and how it's distributing. Can you see? So this tells me a bit how the water is distributed over the paper. Okay, I'm just gonna leave that a bit, and then we're gonna do the same for the Canson paper. As I promised, we will try to do the same for all three galaxies. I'm trying to pay attention all the time to the consistency of my paint here. So right now we are going to the arches paper. Yeah, I put a lot of water on there, so I might remove some of that water a bit. So to do that, just make sure your brush is not super wet, but mostly, yeah, it's just a bit damp. And then you can just use your brush like that to remove some of that excess water. And then you dab it on a paper. I'll put the paper here so that you can see it better. See, I'm just very carefully removing that excess water. And I'm gonna apply a bit more of the indigo. Alright, and I should not forget to pay attention to my cheaper papers and what's happening right now here with the action paper, the cheapest one. Let me make sure the camera is sharp here. Is that the paper is coming off a little bit. I don't know how to explain it, but it's really annoying because it's yeah, I don't know how to explain it. The fibers are coming off or something. And we can see that it's already starting to dry here. Can you see? Okay, so what we can do is we can make some areas. Here it's already almost dry. Okay. I'm just gonna try to work a bit like this. So we're gonna make this here. And we're gonna make this here. And then we'll have one bigger area here. It's okay. Like, these galaxies don't have to be perfect, because this is just about showing you the differences in the paper. That is my goal for today, not to make a super pretty galaxy. All right. Okay. So as I already pointed out, this area is basically already starting to dry. So I think I am gonna leave that as is, just to show you, yeah, what the effect is when it's dry. Right, so and then here we can beautifully add in that water. All right, and then we were gonna make another area here. So what you sometimes can do is you can bring some of that water back up. So I will do that partly here. See? And use that to kind of re-wet the paper. Alright, and you can see that right now my artist paper is still very nice, evenly. Like, I think it's starting to dry a little bit there. So what I'm gonna do is very carefully with this wet brush, I'm gonna apply some water. Alright. Okay, so I'm gonna apply a bit more to the sides here, because I always want the sides of the painting to be as dark as possible. And then we're gonna do the same kind of thing here, right? So I just added some water to my brush, because I want this to be diluted a little bit. But you can see how beautifully this is flowing, right? Okay, then we were gonna add another thingy here. And I don't want it to be so square here, so I am gonna try to round this a little bit. And I love dabbing like this, you know. So I'm gonna try to make this a bit round. And I just love with this paper that I can really take my time. While here, now this area has already dried. Alright, so now here it's not dark enough, so I am adding a bit more. And you will see when this has dried that you can exactly see where I have been with that, because it was already drying out. Okay, I kind of need to stop myself here, because otherwise I might overwork it and it's just gonna get worse. Alright, so I'm also gonna add a bit more here around. Right, and what we can do now is actually have a little bit of fun, because I've been watching some other people, other artists that have been painting galaxies, and they actually played a bit with some water, and I think it's really nice if I do that to show you the effects on the different paper. Alright, so what we're gonna do is create a nice effect. Hopefully I will be using this Princeton Heritage brush size 2 round. Alright, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dip that brush into clean water. I remove a little bit of the excess water, but it's still quite wet. And I will start with the cheap paper, and I'm just gonna touch it. And it really depends on how wet the paper is, so I'm just gonna touch it on different spots. And I think it also depends on how well the thing lifts the paint. Yeah, but right now we don't see a lot happening here, I think. Oop. So I'm gonna just move to the Canson paper. This effect is called blooming, and it can really give some beautiful effects. However, one of the issues that it may give, it can give more differences in like wetness on the paper. So you can create some really wet areas. See here, it's already so dry that it's not even blooming, it's just a droplet. Okay, so let's see what happens if I do that here. Not that much is happening. I think it's usually when you add some more indigo to it that it really can give some nice effects. You know, some days are just better than others. It's okay. I think we should leave it at this. And I think the differences are pretty clear. So I think we should let this dry for a bit. Alright, so the 3 paintings have dried by now, and I think we can agree that there is quite some difference between the 3 of them. So let's talk about what we can see here. So first of all, on the cheapest paper here, we can see that the structure of the paper is kind of coming through, it appears. And you can see clearly where I have been dabbing paint. And yeah, it's just not flowing so well, right? Like, it doesn't look pretty. Then we have here the Canson paper, so the medium paper. Also here you can kind of see the structure, and clearly here you can see that there was pooling of the water. So, and that also, it doesn't look so nicely blended. While when we look at the most expensive paper here, the artist paper, you can see that it blended all quite well. And I could have done more, but I didn't do that on purpose because I wanted to show the differences between the 3 papers, and I really tried to make the to repeat the same steps for all 3 papers, so that the differences based on the paper itself would be as visible as possible. So I will try to give a bit of a close-up with my bigger camera as well. we can see them nicely side to side. Alright, and now for the arches paper, which looks like this. Alright, so I think it would be nice to finish these paintings off, to at least add some stars to it. So usually I use white gouache. Right now I am using this one, you can see it here. And I just dilute it a bit in a small cup. And then I use a toothbrush to create stars. There are other ways to create stars, for instance by tapping your brush, but I have found that that method just is a bit messy for me. I tend to splatter all over except for where I want to splatter. And I feel like you also need a certain consistency. And I just struggle to find that, so I have found other methods that work for me. Ooh. So for instance, you could use this method. So you just tap with your brush. And right now it appears to be successful, so let's just work with this. Wants to work with the final bit as well, would be nice. Alright, so now it's a very basic galaxy, but I think it's also good to just leave it at this, because we can totally use this as a reference to show the difference in quality of paper, and I think that's very valuable. So I think that's it for today. I hope you have you have seen a nice progress with me. I hope you learned a bit more about painting a galaxy and what the effect can be on the paper So I think my main takeaway of this video is to not feel bad about yourself if it's not working out, because it can totally be the materials that you're using. But please keep practicing, and best of luck. Thanks for watching.